Hello there and welcome back to another budget brew of Wort the Raid Mother. She is an insane goblin commander, although goblin doesn't really matter. Let's just dive right into the budget. Budget will be 25 cents per card. That means every card in Scryfall here is going to be 25 cents. Of course, excluding shipping and taxes. This means our deck is ridiculously cheap. Basically, it's gonna be very cheap. And Wort is going to basically solo carry this entire deck. She's a 6 mana value, 4, and then Gruul Hybrid cost. She's a Goblin Shaman. And when Wort the Raid Mother enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red and green Goblin Warrior creature tokens. Each red or green instant or sorcery spell you cast has Conspire. Now, important to note, you don't have to restrict this to hand. As long as you're casting an instant or sorcery spell, as you cast it, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control that share a color with it, and you will copy this spell. Now, a big part of Wort is that she is kind of a self-contained commander. She's going to give you two 1/1 red and green Goblin Warriors so that you can immediately start conspiring spells, and if you get another creature, then it's pretty easy to double conspire. So, first off, we're going into the ramp with Fertile Ground, Weirding Wood, and Wild Growth. You might notice that these are not instants and sorceries. The reality is, if you only restrict yourself to instant and sorceries at 25 cents per budget, you are going to run out of the good ones. So we're going to be playing these 3 enchantments, and hold on to your seats because we have 21 total ramp spells. Next we have Natural Connection, Road to Ruin, and Rolling Regrowth. This is going to be our instant speed land package. Now if you notice that instant speed is basically just going to cost 3. That's the world we live in, and so that's the premium we pay. For our creature ramp package, we have Goblin and Archomancer, Llanowar Elves, and Voyaging Satyr. Goblin and Archomancer is obviously insane. It's going to let us maybe double or triple, maybe quadruple spell, who knows. It's going to reduce the cost of every red and green spell, and that's, spoiler alert, most of our deck. Llanowar Elves, just a cheap creature, it's 1 mana value. Turn 1 mana Llanowar Elves tends to warp the game. Voyaging Satyr is a good synergy with our enchantment package, although there's only 3 of them. Heck, Voyaging Satyr is 25 cents, I'll take it. Next we have our 1 Mana Rock. This is Decanter of Endless Water. Make sure you get the alternate art version. This version, the good looking one, actually costs over $1 now as of recording this video. The other version actually costs closer to 19-20 cents, 25 cents on cardkingdom.com. So make sure you just buy 10-20 of them, because oh boy, people are realizing that a bad mana rock that gives you no max hand size is still worth it. Finally, we get to our sorcery speed ramp package, which is going to be most of our deck, at least most of our ramp package. So Explore, obviously a staple. Explore the Underdark, another variant of a gate searching, so make sure you get a gate plus probably a forest, and then you take the initiative. Taking the initiative, by the way, is probably just going to get you a basic land, and then you're going to lose the initiative. But hey, if you take it twice, maybe you could put 2 counters on Wort or a random goblin. So far wanderings here, likely to get threshold, probably not honestly, but hey, 3 mana to ramp is not the worst thing in the world. This is Pilgrimage, honestly the MVP of this deck. 3 mana, you draw 2 forests, and you get a forest. Now, you don't always draw 2 forests, you need spell mastery, but spoiler alert, most of our deck is actually instants and sorceries. Rampant Growth, a staple of any green deck. And Ranger's Path, make sure you get the hybrid, or make sure you get the forest mountain snowland, and then put that onto the battlefield, then get another forest, put it onto the battlefield tap. Search for Tomorrow, a 1 CMC ramp spell, very strong. Gotta play it in basically every green deck, and it's worth 25 cents or less. Fastward Search, kicker is pretty unusual, but hey, in a pinch, it might actually cause you to win the game. Venture Forth, another version of just getting more lands. And when you suspend it and cast it from suspend, you will get an opportunity to conspire if you really want to on turn, I don't know, 7, 8. It's probably too late for that to matter. Finally, we have Verdant Mastery and Wild Endeavor. These are the 6 mana ramp spells, and yes, we have 6 mana ramp spells because we have no choice. There aren't really any good ones at 3 or 4. We've basically used them all. Finally, we're getting to our card draw with Electric Revelation, Thrill of Possibility, Faithless Salvaging, and You Happen on the Glade. A big part of the discard draw spells, if it's an additional cost, you pay that cost up front, and then you copy the spell. So Thrill of Possibility is going to discard you 1 card, and then if you've copied it, it's going to draw you 4 cards. So lose 2 cards, net 4. That's basically divination. You Happen on the Glade is actually divination, drawing you 2 basic lands, and Faithless Salvaging lets you double up and discard all those lands you drew from You Happen on the Glade. Next we have Cathartic Reunion, Escape to the Wilds, and Galvanic Relay. Cathartic Reunion is actually the super divination. You're going to discard 2 cards plus itself, I guess, when you cast it. Then when you copy it, you're going to draw 6 cards. So lose 3 cards, get 6 cards. That's slightly better than divination, right? Escape to the Wilds, absolutely insane when you cast it and copy it, because you're going to be looking at 10 cards, and it's basically 5 mana, draw 10, play 3 lands this turn. Galvanic Relay, a unusual storm card, but hey, it's our only storm card, and it's going to let you draw, not really draw, but play the cards on from the top of your deck, equal to the number of times you've cast a spell before it this turn, plus itself. Next we have Ignite the Future, Inspired Tinkering, and Magmatic Insight. Ignite the Future being pretty strong if you do it for flashback, although casting random spells is probably not as good as just casting spells from your hand. Inspired Tinkering will let you get 3 treasure tokens for your trouble, and Magmatic Insight is just a very efficient Tormenting Voice. Next we have Pirate's Pillage, Tormenting Voice, Seize the Spoils, and Track Down. So obviously these are more discard draw, this time with a little bit of treasure generation. Track Down, however, you might be wondering, what's that for? The answer is, it's kind of a unusual way of telling time. Basically, you're going to scry 3 and try to find a land, because the chances of you hitting a creature is basically 0. So the plan is use it on turn 2 if you have no choice and if you're mana screwed. Finally, we have our Graveyard Draw, basically drawing from your graveyard. That's basically the same thing, with Gaia's Will, Make-A-Wish, Izzet Chemister, and Song of Inspiration. Big point of Make-A-Wish is that it can return anything, not just permanents. Song of Inspiration is probably just going to get your commander back. Gaia's Will get everything back, although when you cast it, it will be gone for good, including Gaia's Will. Izzet Chemister is a very cool way to cast a bunch of free spells. Hopefully you're just casting expensive spells, but you do you. And finally, we have one of our best cards in the deck, Double Vision. We're moving on to the synergy, kind of miscellaneous synergy. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So Double Vision is going to let you double all of our instant speed ramp spells and our sorcery speed ramp spells. This is kind of one of the big reasons why we have so many instant speed ramp spells. Next we have Creative Technique, 5 mana, Demonstrate. Shuffle your library, then reveal cards from the top of it until you reveal a non-land card. Exile that card, put the rest on the bottom of your library in the random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So the plan here is to demonstrate it, cast it, and conspire it. You're going to resolve Creative Technique 3 times, which means you're going to cast a non-land card 3 times. And going by our deck, you're probably going to cast 3 instants or sorceries, possibly 2. And you want to conspire each and every one of those. Who knows, it's random, it's kind of fun, that's why I put it in the deck. Next we have Wildfire Devils and Young Pyromancer. Young Pyromancer being absolutely essential to generate goblins and or red elemental tokens so that you can actually, conspire. Wildfire Devils is going to cast random spells, and, I just think it's funny. Next we have Brainian Jar, mostly because, hey, I can't really play Brainian Jar in any other deck, but I think Wort is finally the deck for it. So we're going to put a charge counter and then do nothing, because the chances of you having a 1 mana instant sorcery spell is basically 0. But the next turn, who knows, 2 mana spell for free, 3 mana spell for free, keep going with that Brainian Jar, who knows. Next we have our interaction package, and it's mostly artifact interaction with Ancient Grudge, Artifact Mutation, and Mog Salvage. Ancient Grudge is a destroy target artifact, flashback green. So you're going to be destroying 2, maybe 4 artifacts with this. Artifact Mutation, try to aim for an inexpensive artifact, and you're going to create X11 green Saproling creature tokens, where X is that artifact's mana value. With Mog Salvage, you're probably going to control a mountain. Your enemies, I'm not sure if they're going to control an island, but hey, 0 mana artifact destruction, still worth it. Next we have Druid's Deliverance as our singular fog. It will maybe create a goblin token, and if you copy it with Conspire, you're going to create 2 goblin tokens. Fall of the Titan is our fireball, so it's going to do X damage to each of up to 2 target creatures and or players. Hopefully you've cast another spell this turn so you don't have to pay XX, but hey, red X deal damage to X damage to any up to 2 targets, probably worth it. And if you're going to conspire, you're going to do X damage to 4 targets, 2 of which can be doubled up. Wild Ricochet is our 1 protection spell for our commander. If an enemy tries to target it with Swords to Plowshare or any other targeted removal, you can change that target and then choose new targets for the copy. Word of Seizing is another interaction spell. It's pretty hard to interact with, and when it happens, your opponents basically can't do anything. It has Split Second, untap target permanent, and you gain control of it until end of turn. It gains haste until end of turn. Visions of Ruin is our last artifact removal spell. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. For each artifact sacrificed this way, you create a treasure token. The flashback is 10, however, it's reduced by 6 because Wort is a 6 mana commander, so 10 goes down to 4. So you spend 4 mana, get 3 treasures. Next turn, you can spend 4 mana, get 3 treasures. And if you copy the spell, you're actually going to be positive in treasures, assuming each of your opponents has 2 artifacts to trash. Next, we're going to move over to creature removal, Mizzium Mortars, Volcanic Torrent, and Volcanic Vision. Mizzium Mortars is absolutely staple for any budget red removal deck, or deck that actually wants to remove things. It does 4 damage to target creature you don't control, and when you overload it, it's going to do 4 damage to each creature you don't control. If you conspire this, it's going to do 8 damage to each creature you don't control. Volcanic Torrent is a one-sided board wipe again. It does X damage to each creature and planeswalker your opponents control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. Keep in mind, however, it's not going to count copied spells. Copied spells are usually not actually cast. Volcanic Vision is our graveyard reanimation and our one-sided board wipe. Again, these are all one-sided board wipes because, spoiler alert, we can't actually handle board wipes. Our creatures need to stay on the battlefield. Volcanic Vision says, return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Volcanic Vision deals damage equal to that card's mana value to each creature your opponents control. Exile Volcanic Vision. Lastly, we're moving on to our ways to win the game, which is create tons and tons of creature tokens. Crash the Party is absolutely the best way to do this. It says instant speed, create a tapped 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token for each tapped creature you control. So when you copy this, it actually increases exponentially. If not exponentially, it increases a lot. So let's say a scenario where you have 4 creature tokens that are tapped and you've already conspired this. You're going to resolve first the copy of Crash the Party. That's going to create 4 tapped rhinos. The second resolution of Crash the Party is going to create 8 tapped rhinos. So you went from having 4 random creatures to 12 random creatures. 8 of which, actually 12 of them are rhinos plus the 4 you already controlled. Next we have Curious Herd, Goblin War Party, and Verdant Command. Curious Herd is an interesting way to punish artifact decks, especially if they're all in on artifacts. Otherwise, it's probably going to create 1 or 2 3/3 green beasts. Goblin War Party, strangely, is another win condition. Pay 7 mana, and you're going to create 3 1/1 red goblins, and then they will immediately gain haste and +1/+1. The second resolution, however, is going to give the new goblins +1/+1 and the old goblins +1/+1. So at the end of this, you're going to be left with 3 goblins, and they're going to be 3/3s with haste. And then the second the second trio of goblins is going to have +1/+1 only, so they'll be 2/2s. Verdant Command, unusual way of gaining 3 life and creating 2 tapped squirrel tokens. Honestly, you're probably never going to encounter planeswalkers or exile stuff, so those stuff is actually just extra spice. Lastly, we have Hate Mirage as an interesting way to steal our opponent's creatures. It's going to steal 2 creatures, however, those creatures can still block, so hopefully you're going to copy Hate Mirage and you're targeting non-legendary creatures. Hate Mirage says, choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. For each of those creatures, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, and you'll exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Unlike most Hate Mirage decks, there's actually no way to get around the exile part, so hopefully you just win the game on the spot. Next we have our generic good cards that create creature tokens with Phylath the World Sculptor and Rampaging Balos. Phylath has the Zendikar text where when Phylath World Sculptor enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. And it also has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, put 4 +1/+1 counters on target plant you control. Rampaging Velox has a similar ability to get out of control. It's a trampling beast, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Last but not least, we have the lands. Our land package is very simple: Blighted Woodland and Drowned Yard Temple. Blighted Woodland obviously is stable in green decks, and Drowned Yard Temple stable in discard decks and or self-mill. Next, we have Gruul Gate, Highland Forest, Gruul Turf, and Kazandu Refuge. These are just dual lands. Next, we have the staples: Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, Exotic Orchard, and we have Myriad Landscape, Temple of the False God, and Terramorphic Expanse. And to prove that this deck is extremely cheap, right now on Card Kingdom, you can buy the whole thing for about $24.56. This is using MTG Goldfish Deck Pricer. And that's all for today, folks.